Hi, welcome to another episode of History Hunters. I'm down here in the Lemoore area, and I decided to stop by here and take a look at this adobe structure that was built by Daniel Rhoads. Now, he was a Mormon who figured prominently in California history. He was one of the people who led the rescue parties for the Donner Party. He was a native of Missouri, and he decided to come back here, and he settled in Gilroy, and then he decided to buy some property on the Kings River. He built this adobe. It's now a historical landmark, and we're going to take a look at it. But the first thing that struck me in coming here is this pump here, a hand pump to bring water out of the ground. You don't see these every day, do you? Check it out. Oh my gosh. So it was a drought in 1857. He brought his livestock here to the Kings River. His family joined him in 1860. Moving into this adobe, he constructed on his 2,000 acres of land. And here we go with a little marker. El Adobe de los Robles Rancho is restored adobe, second oldest in San Joaquin Valley, built by Daniel Rhoads, who came to California in 1846 by overland caravan. Rhoads and his brother John, among organizers of the first expedition to rescue the Donner Party at Donner Lake. This adobe was built in 1856 and has had continued occupancy since. Okay, now there's something I need to show you about this. Obviously, somebody has removed these stones that were here at one time. But look at this. I just noticed this. What does that look like to you? Piece of wood? It's petrified wood. That is amazing. To quote Huell Hauser, that's amazing. Wow. Look like they used some shells here. It is very hot today. Look at this old abandoned structure.
Daniel Rhoads grew up in Illinois and became interested in General John C. Fremont's account of his first trip to California and decided to journey to the West Coast himself. In 1846, he and wife Amanda and other family members made the 5-month journey across the country. Along the way, they encountered the Donners, who made the unfortunate decision to take the Hastings cutoff, advertised as a shorter route. The Rhoads party proceeded on the tried and true route, but the Donners would find the so-called shortcut took much longer and placed them in the Sierra during a late October snowstorm.
Now, Daniel Rhoads is buried not too far from here. I'm going to try to go see if I can find the family mausoleum. This is amazing.
The 81 travelers became stranded in heavy snow for months without enough food. They resorted to cannibalism of the dead. Meanwhile, the Rhoads party arrived in Wheatland, California on October 4th, 1846, where they stayed for about a month before settling near Sutter's Ford in the Sacramento Valley.
Oh, look at that door. That's crazy. Look at that old press right there.
While working on a ranch there, word of the Donner Party's plight reached Daniel Rhoads and his brother John Rhoads. They and others felt it their duty to attempt the rescue. He wrote to his father-in-law, quote, "We concluded we would go or die trying, for not to make any attempt to save them would be a disgrace to us and to California for as long as time lasted." Daniel Rhoads joined a large group of between 17 and 25 men who set out to save the people starving in the High Sierra. Each man carried a blanket, shovel, and 50 pounds of meat provided by John Sutter. They left on February 4th, 1847 on horses, but when the snow became too deep, they had to walk on makeshift snowshoes. By February 13th, only 7 men were left in the rescue effort. Just after sundown on February 18th, the men found one of the survivors. Daniel Rhoads would later write, quote, "We raised a loud hello, and then we saw a woman emerge from a hole in the snow. As we approached her, several others made their appearance in like manner coming out of the snow. They were gaunt with famine, and I never could forget the horrible ghastly sight they presented. The first woman spoke in a hollow voice, very much agitated, and said, "Are you men from California, or do you come from heaven?" The Rhoads gathered up 21 survivors, mostly children, and began making the trek down into the valley, but several died along the way. 18 made it. 3 additional rescue parties were required to extract all surviving Donner Party members. Only 45 of the original 81 members of the Donner Party survived, 32 of them children. John Rhoads made 3 other trips to help the Donners and ended up with a weakened constitution and dying in his early 40s.
Coming up the road there, I saw this sign for the historical marker for the adobe. How many of you had dads who would stop at every one of these growing up and you groaned? And now I think, what a fascinating piece of California history. And look at this out here. This is some kind of outdoor cooking oven or something. Not sure how old this is, but this is something I was looking at because this was brought in. This is not native to this area. Like I said in one of my videos, back in the 1840s and 50s, you didn't have a Home Depot to go buy lumber, to buy wood, so you used what resources you had, and mud, certainly plentiful here in the Central Valley.
I failed in my attempt to access the Rhoads family mausoleum, located on this private property behind this house, so I'm relying on a few photos I found online to show you what the tomb looks like. Laboring for months, Daniel Rhoads and his family built the mausoleum using granite hauled from above 3 rivers. The interior of the tomb was finished in cut and polished marble, with 2 additional marble plaques placed on the outside bearing the names of the deceased. It was ready when Rhoads died in San Francisco on December 4, 1895. Wife Amanda passed away in 1906.
I passed by this and I thought it was pretty cool to celebrate their farm heritage here. It's like somebody ripped the ears right off of this mama cow and the baby cow. Fiberglass, what do you expect? And this little island here has a really cute marquee for the community. Obviously they celebrate their ag roots here. 2 tractors, huge letters spell out Hanford, lit up at night. And then down here we've got a McCormick Farmall tractor, diesel 400.
Hanford's town square has a number of historically significant buildings. This is the site of the Hanford Auditorium, built in 1925 at a cost of $200,000, which is about $3 million today. It was and remains the pride of the community. The auditorium was built on the site after the demolition of the Central Grammar School. By the way, the Seth Thomas clock on the facade was salvaged from the school. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt made an appearance here in April 1941, and in 1949, bandleader Benny Goodman and his orchestra performed here. Having grown up in Hanford and Lemoore, Steve Perry knows this building very well. I have previously done a video on Steve Perry's growing up years in this town, so if you would like, check out that video as well. On the National Register of Historic Places is the historic Kings County Courthouse, erected in 1896. It was designed by architect David Gibbs at a cost of $95,000.
So this is the old county jail. They call it the Bastille. Has an ominous sound to it, but it operated from 1897 to about 1964. One of the locals told me that homeless people like to poop and pee around it. That's probably why they have a fence around it. So glad that the community of Hanford actually values their historical structures, because Stockton had a really grand county jail like this, and they tore it down. But if you look in the back there, that gray section, you will see bars on the windows, which is where the prisoners were kept. So I think that's a very cool addition to this community.
China Alley features 11 historic buildings near 7th and Green Streets in downtown Hanford.
This was definitely a must-stop, must-see on my trip to Hanford. It is China Alley. These buildings are probably one of the oldest Chinatowns left in California.
China Alley traces its roots to 1877 when the Central Pacific Railroad was extended westward into the area and the new town of Hanford was formed. Numerous Chinese came to the area, many initially to help build the railroads, but others came for farming and agricultural purposes.
It's amazing that this is still here. This is a very historic area. Gosh, I've never seen anything quite like this. There are a lot of old buildings here, brick buildings, very tall. I've never seen porches go up that high.
The alley grew rapidly and the Chinatown prospered to include restaurants, homes, boarding houses, grocery stores, laundries, herb shops and herbal doctors, sundry stores, gambling establishments, a Chinese school, and a Taoist temple. It soon became known as a city within a city with buildings lining both sides of the alley made from bricks formed and fired on site.
It looks like they're trying to restore some of this. China Alley restoration, 13 and 13 and a half. But you can tell it's definitely got some old brick, old paint. Look at the old iron doors on this. Definitely is a throwback to a different time in America. This is China Cafe over here. I had to shoot over this fence and it just grabbed me. Damn. That's it, it's very brief. Look at that. Want to see the back side of it, which backs up to the main street, China Alley. It's almost like the Chinese were forced to be in their own community. Wow, look at this. This is first and oldest Sioux Herbs Company. What a hidden gem here in Hanford. If these walls could talk, I often say. I think that's pretty interesting. I think there's a community up in Law, California, up in the Delta area that I want to check out too. It's similar to that, kind of its own little community of Chinese buildings and businesses. Very interesting part of the California history. And up here there's a wooden building that looks like it's straight out of Bodie. And let's go over and check it out and see what it says. But this building, it's very old, but it looks like it could be a tinderbox to set something on fire. Let's hope that never happens. Let's go up the stairs here. King's Hand Laundry. It's an old laundry. King's Hand Laundry. The Tagawa family operated a boarding house here from 1911 to 1915. At that time, the family opened the Hand Laundry, which continues to be operated by one of the daughters. I don't think that's the case, though. Look at that old glass. That's sure sign of oldness. I'm here in Hanford at the Hanford Cemetery. No parent back in 1962 would have been too concerned about leaving their daughter at home, especially in a small, sleepy town like Hanford, California. But crime tends to rear its head in every place in America. Here's the grave of Marlene Miller. She was born in 1947, and she was murdered on March 21st, 1962, while she was at her house.
15-year-old Marlene Miller was alone in a rural home near Hanford after her parents and brother left for the evening of March 21st, 1962. When they returned, Marlene was nowhere to be found. Police found her tied up body submerged in a nearby canal with a pair of scissors embedded in her chest. The murder was pinned on Booker T. Hillary, a black farm laborer who decades later would become the center of a U.S. Supreme Court case. Hillary, who had a prior rape conviction, was convicted of the murder based on strong circumstantial evidence. In 1986, Hillary petitioned for retrial by challenging his 1962 conviction on the basis that he was denied equal protection rights guaranteed by the 14th Amendment because there were no blacks on the indicting grand jury. That original conviction was overturned in a 6-3 vote of the U.S. Supreme Court, so Hillary was retried later that year. Old as well as new forensic evidence helped convict Hillary in the second trial. That evidence was highlighted in the 2003 episode of Forensic Files titled Paintball, which is available on YouTube. Hillary died in prison on January 16, 2023.
They lived on Elder and Highway 43, about 3 or 4 miles out of town. It really shocked this entire community. So right over there against the fence is where Steve Perry's dad is buried. And if you come straight back along this fence, and there's a house there with an air conditioning unit on it. And right here is a very simple marker. It just says Andrade. She claimed to be the wife of Joaquin Murrietta, the famous California outlaw of the California Gold Rush period.
Born in Mexico in about 1831, Mariana came to California with her parents in about 1853 and soon became an entertainer for the miners at New Iberia. She often claimed to be the widow of Joaquin Murrietta, making her even more of an attraction to her customers. Later, Mariana became a housekeeper and cook for the sheep herders in the areas of present-day Avenal, Coalinga, and the Kettleman Hills. Before 1880, Mariana lived below Los Tres Piedras, near Martinez Springs, where she became a religious revivalist. She convinced at least 400 people or more that if they followed her preaching, they would be the only souls saved when the world would soon end. Following the death of a small child, Mariana was arrested, but due to a lack of evidence, she was released. No records were found of her preaching after her release from jail. In 1899, Mariana was involved in the death of a sheep herder who had just come into quite a bit of money due to the sale of his sheep. The sheep herder was murdered and his body was hacked up, reportedly with a common kitchen knife. Mariana and her unnamed companion were arrested and given a jury trial, during which one juror said that Mariana told her companion to be a man and die for the woman he loved. He was hanged from the tree in the canyon known later as Deadman Canyon. Mariana, however, went free. In 1902, Mariana was living near Layton at the Kings River with her companion Gabriel, who was a woodcutter. Friends said that she was deranged but was able to cook for the old man's meals. On Saturday, April 12, 1902, Mariana challenged the California Limited, a Santa Fe train. She had been drinking wine, and there were various reports that she deliberately stepped in front of the train, didn't hear it, or as some said, raised her fist and challenged the train to a duel.
So that's the interesting story of Mariana Andrade. Things that you learn about typically only on History Hunters, because I like to do stories that nobody else has done. Seems like there's a lot of people that trip over themselves to do the same stories, but I like to do things that maybe you didn't know about. And I just discovered this purely by accident one day reading a book.
We'll likely never know for sure if Mariana Andrade was really the wife of early California's most feared villain. After all, she was a religious con artist who preyed upon gullible followers. We do know that her face bore knife scars, which she claimed were inflicted on her when Murrietta found out she was cheating on him. A Mrs. Jack Sutherland claimed that she knew Andrade when she was an attractive younger woman, romantically involved with Murrietta in Sonora, California. The life of Joaquin Murrietta is shrouded in mystery as well. What is generally accepted is that Rangers hired in 1853 by California Governor John Bigler and headed by Captain Harry Love, tracked down and killed Murrietta and 2 members of his gang. The slayings occurred in the region of Cantua Creek, which were also frequented by Mariana. As proof of their kill and for identification purposes, Ranger Bill Burns used his Bowie knife to cut the head from the body since it wouldn't last through the long and hot journey back north. The head was wrapped in a blanket as the Rangers returned home. At Millerton, the head was placed in a keg of whiskey to preserve it. Many contemporaries of Murrietta swore out affidavits that the head did belong to the bandit, but to this day there are naysayers. The grisly item made its way to Mariposa, then Snelling, and ended up on display in Stockton. The purported head was in San Francisco at the time of the massive 1906 earthquake and was believed lost or destroyed in the rubble. In 1980, newspapers reported that Walter Johnson of Santa Rosa claimed to have the head, but most believed that it was a poorly crafted wax copy. Apparently, he got so fed up with publicity that he decided to bury it on his property.
So as you can tell, I'm back home. I'm relaxing in my backyard after my trip to Hanford, California. This was shot in June of 2025. Would always appreciate having you leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of the video. Should we do more like this? I apologize, it was a little disjointed because I covered a variety of different topics relating to history in Hanford, but I hope that you were able to follow along. If you could give us a thumbs up, that helps us as well. If you could subscribe to our channel, we would love to have you become a member of the channel. And it doesn't cost a thing, of course. But if you do subscribe, we do ask that you watch our videos. I do post pretty much a video every Sunday. I've had some people say, I'm not getting notifications. And I tell them, well, Sunday morning, come look for us. We're going to be here. All right. Thank you so much for sticking through to the end of this one. Take care.